China's President Xi Jinping has just moments ago arrived in Egypt, and that's after he wrapped up his visit to Saudi Arabia in the first leg of his three-nation tour in the Middle East. Back in 2014, China and Egypt agreed to lift their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Relations between the two nations span 60 years. Ahead of his visit, President Xi said he is keen for China and Egypt to uphold regional peace, promote beneficial cooperation, and advocate the diversity of their civilizations. President Xi Jinping also made it clear that he believes China and Egypt and China-Arab friendships can forge ahead for the benefit of all stakeholders. Now, since his election, President Sisi has favored stronger ties with China. Both countries upgraded relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership last year. Our correspondent Adel Makroui talked to the Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry on the main points that could arise during President Xi's state visit to Egypt.
There has been sort of a reformation in the Egyptian foreign policy in general. We've seen Egypt strengthening its bilateral relations with many Eastern countries. It was slightly evident after the election of former President Mohamed Morsi by his visit to China, but it was much more stronger with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's administration. What were the main reasons for Egypt at that stage to re-evaluate these foreign policies?
After the 25th of January and the 30th of June revolutions, Egypt has been seeking to fulfill the demands of the Egyptian people in all aspects, to restructure the executive authority and to stand up for its responsibilities. Egypt is keen on balanced ties with all countries of the world, cooperative ties that lead to mutual benefits. To fulfill these Egyptian demands and to build on the strong existing foundation between Egypt and China is what the people want. We have rich relations that have always been managed wisely. To intensify these ties with China to achieve the best for our people.
How do you feel about President Xi Jinping going to have an artistic site in Luxor to go to visit our ancient Egyptian antiquities?
Our two peoples feel that the civilizations they've created had an impact to form human heritage. It's also a tie between both nations. Their civilizations rose in parallel forms, and there's a feeling that this ancient history is common between them. There's always interest in the communication between ancient Egypt and the continuity of it with the ancient Chinese civilization and vice versa. Egyptians are always interested to know more about the great Chinese heritage. That's something common between our people. The Chinese president's visit has a great significance and deep meaning. The two countries with this immense heritage are now participating positively in humanity's modern era, continuing their ancient legacy.
And as earlier mentioned, President Xi has arrived in Egypt after a visit to Saudi Arabia, where several new deals were signed. CCTV's Hang Peng has that story.
Even before President Xi landed in Riyadh, the world was taken aback by the reception Saudi Arabia afforded the Chinese president. Saudi authorities dispatched 4 F-15 fighter jets to escort Xi's plane in a rare demonstration of their close bilateral ties. One of the most important results of the visit is that the two countries have upgraded their relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. That means a significant boost of mutual strategic trust and support in each other's core interest. Saudi Arabia's leading newspaper, the Arab News, has devoted 10 pages of special coverage of President Xi Jinping's visit, hailing China as a special partner of Saudi Arabia. China is now one of Saudi Arabia's biggest trade partners, and Saudi Arabia is China's biggest oil supplier. But this time, their cooperation has gone beyond just oil. President Xi and the Saudi king witnessed the signing of 14 major trade deals, most of which are focused on non-oil industries. The areas include new energy, culture, and industrial capacity cooperation. This comes as Saudi Arabia is facing its largest deficit in history on the back of tumbling oil prices. It hopes that the new deals will give a much-needed boost to the local economy. The two leaders have also attended the opening ceremony of Yanbu Oil Processing Plant, as China's largest investment project in the Middle East, a joint venture between Sinopec and Saudi Arabian Oil Corporation.
In the past 4 years, the joint venture trained about 800 technical workers and accepted about 100 interns from local universities. This contributed to the skills improvement of local workers.
Apart from economic issues, the two countries have also promised to try to work for more stability in the Middle Eastern region and fight terrorism.
The challenges that are facing the world, particularly those of terrorism, require a unified international community to counter them and to stress the principles of the United Nations, particularly the non-intervention in the internal affairs of other countries and respect of sovereignty in order for security and peace to prevail.
President Xi's next stop is Egypt before he follows on to Iran. Xi is the first head of state to visit both Riyadh and Tehran after the countries cut diplomatic ties over the execution of a Shia cleric earlier this month. The world will watch closely how Xi will strike a balance between the two feuding regional giants, both of which are good friends of China. Han Peng, CCTV, Riyadh.
Right, let's get you a quick update now on President Xi's visit to Egypt. And I'm joined live from Cairo by CCTV's Yasser Hakim. He has with him two special guests. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. But before we get into your interview, Yasser, let's begin by asking you, do you have an update on President Xi's visit to Egypt and any idea where the president is at the moment?
Well, the president had been met in the airport by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and according to protocol, usually it's not the president who receives the guests. So when he himself goes, it's a sign or a message that he views the Chinese president more as a friend, not just as a formal relationship with another neighbor or any country that has good diplomatic ties. It's even more, usually does that with the close neighbors like Saudi Arabia, King, and other Arab leaders. After the meeting, we understand there will be a banquet between both tonight, and it will start the political and the official meetings will begin early in the morning, in addition to the speech with the Arab League. As for the political and economic relations, I have with me two experts on these fields, and I will start with Mr. Sameh Rashid, who is a researcher at political affairs in Egypt. And I'm going to ask you, just meeting the Chinese President Xi in the airport sends a signature, sends a message, like I said. But how do you describe the Chinese-Egyptian diplomatic relation in the last few years, especially after the June 30th uprising 2 years ago?
Well, I think historically the relations between Egypt and China was based on a common understanding of the regional and even the global issues, especially in the 60s and the 70s of the last decade, of the last century. But after January Revolution or uprising, Egyptian foreign policy and foreign relations had some instabilities and some revisions. After June 30th, I think that the relations restored its power, and especially that Egypt now is trying to make some balance in its outer space and its foreign relations to make a balance with its relations or its historical ally with the US. And I think that some other superpowers like China and Russia is very qualified to play a big role either in the bilateral relations or in the regional and multilateral relations and issues in the Middle East.
All right, I go to you, Dr. Sufi Abu Talib. You're an advisor to the Prime Minister, to the government for economic affairs. What are the main industries, or if you may say sectors, that will witness a agreement and partnership deals signed during President Xi Jinping's visit here?
Basically, the focus is on infrastructure. They are talking about the new capital. The Chinese will come in because their expertise in this area. They are talking about power plants run by coal. The Chinese are very good at that. They're talking about sewage and other areas, water supplies, mainly infrastructure. Nevertheless, there are some minor cooperation in information and communication technology and some industries. But predominantly, we're talking about infrastructure and investment in the Suez Canal, the new Suez Canal, and the Chinese have north of Suez, they have an area for industry. It is an economic zone. And they should develop this further. And this is what we shall see.
Yes, and Egypt badly needs work and development of its infrastructure and expertise also for transport. And the Suez Canal, it's at least 6 square kilometers zone, and could be more. Back to you, Mr. Sameh. The Chinese president will address the Arab League on his first day after arrival as an official visit. What is his message to the Arab world, which he will show or he will relieve during his stay here in Cairo?
Only 2 days before, China declared its ever first Chinese-Arab policy. It's a declaration, it's the first one of its kind. According to this declaration, China, I think it's still conservative, it's still stick to some conservative policy towards the Middle East, especially in the political issues. We still have an mainly economic policy, Chinese policy, towards the Middle East. So I think that President Xi will address the Arab League to offer some communicating role, which China is well qualified to play during the Arab issues, especially we have some problems, big problems like Syria, like Yemen, and so on. And we should remember here that he is coming from Saudi Arabia, and he will move after Egypt to Iran. So I think he may play some role, but not a mediating role. China is still conservative about playing as a mediator or interfere in the regional issue. It wouldn't involve directly, but it may may activate its political rule little more than now. And I think it's not easy for the Arab world to politicize Chinese rule or Chinese attitudes towards the area, at least for the next 5 years.
So conservative, but with a Chinese-Arab policy, we expect more presence for China in the near future in the Middle East and
more
Arab
effective
world,
rule, in fact. And it depends also upon the Arab side.
As well.
How would it deal with this offer or with this action from China?
All right. One final question to you, Dr. Sufi Abu Talib, economics. What would you hope to see from the Egyptian-Chinese economic cooperation?
We have trade, very good trade with the Chinese. The EU comes first, and then the Chinese. The trade is around $12 billion, predominantly imports from China. The Chinese are very good in information technology and high-tech specifically. They are very good in solar energy and renewable energy. And we have our own facilities we are very good in cement, fertilizers, food industry. So we can do agreements in this area. Let's talk about the Chinese. The Koreans, South Koreans, have establishment. Samsung has established a big factory here in Egypt to manufacture mobiles and TVs. I would like to see the Chinese, with their expertise, to establish a facility to assemble mobiles, to assemble computers, to assemble accessories and other things, such as electric motorcycles and solar units. And now we have the new light-emitting diode lamps and a facility for LED manufacturing. So this high-tech, inexpensive high-tech, I think the Chinese are very good at that. Besides, they have allocated $50 billion for investments in Egypt, in Africa in the next 5 years. They should allocate part of this investment for what I'm talking about, these projects. We can talk also about joint projects with businessmen, Egyptian businessmen and Chinese businessmen, specifically again in the high technology area where China excels.
Okay. All right, there will be 33, as we've been told, 33 partnerships and projects that will be signed between both countries. we'll see more details about these projects, and will they come up to the standards and hopes of Dr. Sufi Abu Talib and experts here. I thank you very much for joining me, sir. And Samah Rashid, Mr. Samah, thank you very much for joining me. Back to you.
Yes, Hakim, for us there in Cairo. Thank you for that update.